This is the first of a three-part lesson series on what I'm calling the mind of a champion. The mind of a champion. Champions think differently than other people. Other people are just happy when they win. Champions expect to win every time. Now, I know that most churches don't have that mindset. In fact, I think many churches live by the cliche, "Blessed is he that expecteth nothing, for he shall not be disappointed." What a tragedy that so many people have fallen into that kind of mindset where they do not even expect to win. This first lesson I'm calling Everybody Loves to Win. Everybody wants to be a winner. They enjoy doing that. It's been many years ago now. I remember my grandson, when he was about 4 years old, I was up early one morning reading, studying, and about 4:30, 5 o'clock, I heard the pitter-patter of these little feet, and I look around, there he is, standing in the door, grinning at me, and then he spotted the checker game, and he says to me, "Poppy, can we play checkers?" And I said, "Of course, set it up. I'll be happy to play you a game." And then he said, "I'm going to win." Now, who puts that in the heart of a child? It's God that puts that in the heart of a child. Everybody loves to win. And what I've discovered in churches is when people stop winning, they stop showing up. And I really believe that is the real problem that we are dealing with in our nation, why so many people have dropped out of church as they see it has nothing of significance to offer them to make them a winner, to help them to be better than they are by themselves. Now, a good question we need to ask ourselves about any kind of sports event is, why do we keep score at sporting events? Well, it's quite obvious. The reason we keep score is because winning is important. And if we don't keep score, then we don't know who is winning. Now, when it comes to the church, that changes everything, because the very nature of church is based on spiritual principles, things that you cannot see with the natural eye. You can see the evidence of it, you can see the effects of it, but you cannot see God, you cannot see Christ, you cannot see the Holy Spirit with the natural eye. So the very nature of church makes it difficult for us to keep score, to know when we are winning. Let me ask you a question. When is the last time that we won at church? How do you know if your church is winning? Those are good questions that we need to ask. In fact, let me define it even more specifically than that. That is, what does a win look like? How do we know if we are on a winning team? Now, all of these are significant questions because everybody loves to win. Everybody loves the winner. And so these are the reasons we have to define it. Now, let me put it in another category. Let me state it like this. If we're going to play the game, then we must know the rules. I give you a picture here of a chess game. Playing chess is very different than playing football. Playing chess is very different than playing other games. You must know the rules of the game if you are going to be able to win. So the first thing I want to talk about in Everybody Loves to Win is we need to clarify the win. Clarify it. What are we talking about when we talk about winning? What do we mean by that? What we must do as spiritual leaders, we've got to define what is important at every level of the church. That's got to be clearly defined. If we do not define that, then we're leaving it open for everybody's opinion. And everybody will have one. They'll have their idea of what it means to win. But it's crucial that churches clarify this, because we're not dealing with natural things here. We're dealing with people's eternities. We're dealing with eternal values, things that are not only important in this life, but in the life to come. And so this is why it is so important that we take the time to clarify the win. What are we talking about when we talk about winning? A good statement concerning this is a statement that says, we cannot manage what we cannot measure. That is a good way of saying it. Because if we're going to manage or play the game properly, we have to know what the rules are and abide by those rules. So what we're going to try to do in this lesson is help you to be able to determine what your values are, what the wins are. How do we measure success? Now, for too many people, I think it's very elementary ways that they measure it. In fact, it's what we used to call the scoreboards in churches, where they would keep the attendance of that day and the offering of that day posted on a board, and everybody's looking at the board to see if we're winning. But counting nickels and noses is very elementary when it comes to spiritual growth. How do we know if we are making progress? How are we going to measure success? A good cliche concerning this is, if we aim at nothing, we will hit it every time. And I believe that is what has happened to too many churches. Too many churches literally have never taken the time to define what a win means. And so nobody knows if we're winning or not. They get to the point they don't even care. And then gradually they stop showing up. Some of the questions that we can ask ourselves in helping to define the win is questions like this. Do our members invite their unchurched friends to come with them to church? Now, statistics tell us that up to 80%, these are the surveys that I have read and studied, up to 80% of unchurched friends would go to church if somebody invited them. Why doesn't someone invite them? It's quite obvious why they don't invite them, because nothing exciting is happening. Nothing of importance is happening. And so they do not invite their friends. That shows us we're not winning. We haven't defined the win. Here's another good question. Do our members tithe to the church? You only put your money in something you think is important. The reason we count our money is because money counts and it has value to us. And so when I find people that attend church, but they do not support their church financially, they are people that really do not believe in what we are teaching, what we are saying. They attend because of a social event or such, but they're really not committed to the win. In fact, they probably don't even know what the win looks like. Another good question that we can ask ourselves as spiritual leaders is, do our members understand and practice the scriptural truths that we are teaching them? Are they putting it into practice? One of the things I've discovered is many people say that they are Christians, and yet they live just like everyone else lives around them. People that don't attend church, people that don't support their church, people that are unfaithful to their families. They live just like everybody else lives, and yet they say they are Christians. Jesus had a word for that. He said that is a hypocrite. Someone that says one thing, but they do something else. But we need to ask ourselves, why are our members not putting these things into practice? Are we not communicating it clearly? Are we not showing them the value of it? See, these are the things that show the reason why we must clarify the win. Clarifying the win, it means communicating to our church members what really matters, what really is important, and the way that they should be living. So this is what we mean by clarifying the when. Now let me say something else. Nothing hinders church growth. Nothing hinders church's progress more than team members that have separate agendas pulling against each other. In other words, those in the music ministry are quarreling with those that are in the teaching ministry. Those that are in teaching are at odds with the people that are in hospitality and visitation, evangelism. Anytime that you have this, you're not going to be successful. Now, we must realize we're not talking about bad people here. These people really aren't being rebellious. No. What's happening is they are simply playing their own game. What is important to them? The music ministry, that's everything, but to come to prayer life, come to teaching life, come to visitation, evangelism, those are not things that are on their agenda, things that are important to them. And so they're simply playing their own game. We have not defined what the when is. And as long as the when is unclear, we are forcing our members to guess what a when looks like, what is really important for the church. So we are not doing our job if we're not making it very clear where we need to go, what we need to be accomplishing. If the when is unclear, we're forcing our leadership to define a when in their own terms. And if they're heading up a different ministry, that's what's important to them. They're not thinking of themselves as team players working together for the common good. They're simply promoting their own ministry. These are the reasons why we need to clarify the when. Now, let me talk about a second area here. The second area is what I'm going to call the benefits of clarity. The benefits of clarity. What are the benefits that come from defining the when, making it clear where everybody understands if we're winning or not? Clarifying the when helps everybody to stay on the same page. As I said, they're not just playing their own game. They're not just doing their own ministry with the exclusion of everybody else. No, it makes us team players. It brings us all together, and we realize what our part is in helping the team to win. It keeps us on the same page. Now, the truth is, misalignment usually happens gradually. We don't even know it's taking place. For instance, a very small church operates differently than a large church. They function differently. You must understand the rules of the game, where you are in a win. This misalignment, see, what happens is, as churches grow, and if they're doing ministry effectively, they do grow. They affect more people's lives. They help change people for the better. There's a dynamic that takes place that improves the quality of life. But as they grow, I give you a picture here of two football players, and they're probably approximately the same age. But one of them has hit his growth spurt a lot faster than the other one. And the other one is very small, yet he is the same age. This difference in size creates this misalignment. Simply by growing, suddenly he's having to do things differently than he used to do it before. I can remember I was the smallest boy in my class in junior high, and then I hit my growth spurt, and suddenly it's like I'm living in a different body, and I have to learn how to walk differently, how to balance myself differently. And at first, it was very awkward, and I was always bumping into things and tripping over things because it's like I'm living in a new body. What's happened? I'm growing. The same thing happens in churches. As churches grow, what used to work well doesn't work that well anymore. Suddenly, what used to work very well is now creating confusion, creating problems. So you have to realign yourself for the win, make it clear so that everybody can stay on the same page. When we clarify the win, we also use our resources more effectively. Now, the truth of the matter is, money is always important because it always is in limited resources. If we had all the money that we want, we would definitely do things differently. But we don't. All of us are dealing with limited resources, and so because of that, if we're clarifying the win, we're not wasting our resources. We're not wasting people's energy. We're not wasting the money, but we are very focused and specific about what we are trying to accomplish. Also, when we clarify the win, we create the potential for positive momentum. Now, this is what I mean in the mind of a champion. Champions expect to win. What is momentum? Momentum is nothing more than a series of wins. And it's why I encourage leaders, always start with things that are smaller. Don't start with the big project first. Start with the little things, because people talk. Give them good things to talk about. And every time they accomplish a win, it sets them up for the next win. As I said, so many live by the old cliche, blessed is he that expecteth nothing, for he shall not be disappointed. What a tragedy, but I see so many churches are like that. They come to church and they leave. They come and they leave, never expecting anything. And Jesus said it so well, as your faith is, so be it unto you. So momentum is simply a series of wins. And we begin developing the mind of a champion where we come expecting to win, expecting this is going to be good thing. And as your expectation is, as your faith is, so be it unto you. Now, let me talk about a third area here. The third area is what I'm going to call steps to clarifying the win. How do we go about accomplishing this? Well, here are some ways that will help you. First of all, sum up the win with a simple phrase. In other words, try to reduce it down, to take the complexity out of life, take the complication out of it. Life can get so confusing. It can become so distracting. And so define it. Bring it down to one simple phrase. What is it that is most important to us? What is the one thing that we want to accomplish above everything else? Define that in as simple terms as you can. Now, keep the win specific. Keep it as specific as possible, because if you shoot at everything, you hit nothing. That is not a good way to win. No, keep it specific, to the point. What is it that we want to accomplish at this event? What is it that we want to accomplish with this ministry? What is our goal? Define that. Define it. As someone has well said, we should determine what we want to be before we start being what we determined. You need to sit down and to define that. Define the win. Restate it frequently. Restate it creatively over and over again. It may be clear to you, but it's certainly not clear to them. This is something that you've given hours thinking about, praying about, studying, and talking with others. For many of those that are listening to you, it may be the first time they've heard it. So you've got to repeat it again and again. It's well said, repetition is the mother of all learning. So restate this. Here's a way that I can say it. Put it in print. Print it. Preach it. Bring it to the pulpit and talk about it. Sing it. Choose songs that have the same message that you're trying to communicate to the people. Dramatize it. That's right. Put it in skit form, because so many people are visually oriented. Let them see it with their eyes and video it. Play it again and again. And I'm just giving you some simple ideas here, but what I'm saying is you've got to find different ways to communicate the same thing of what is the one thing that we're trying to accomplish. Strive to say it over and over again without becoming boring. That's the worst thing that we can do as a public speaker, is to become boring. No, you've got to become creative. You've got to learn different ways to communicate the same thing. So by doing this, what we're doing is driving home the fact of what is important to us. Good coaches do this. Good coaches continually communicate to their team what is important. They're always going over the basics. I remember so well the story they tell of Vince Lombardi when he went to the Green Bay Packers, and they were the cellar team, the worst team in the National Football League. And after they had experienced their first loss under his leadership, he walks into the locker room and holds up a football and says, "Gentlemen, this is a football." And he began teaching them just basic things concerning the game. They went on to become a winning team, and he is one of the most winning coaches in football history. How did we do that? You continually communicate the things that are important to the team. You clarify the win at every level of the church. Now, one of the mistakes that too many leaders make is they only communicate with their top leadership. That's a mistake. Don't stop with the top level. You've got to think of leadership in layers, like peeling an onion. You've got to get to the heart of the issue. And so you've got to communicate it to every level of the church, because the principle will only become effective if the practice is carried out across all levels where practical ministry is happening to the church. In other words, it's not enough for you as a leader or a pastor to make a statement, to preach a sermon. You're becoming more effective when your people start talking about it. When they start communicating it, then you're getting through. Your message is coming through clearly. You've got to be able to communicate it to every level of the church. And so that's what I say. Churches need scoreboards, good scoreboards. I think the example I gave earlier, what we used to call the scoreboard, where we kept the number of people present and what the size of the offering was. It's important that we do that, but don't post it in the church. No, leaders need to know, but not everybody else needs to know. That's not what I'm talking about. Good scoreboards are you being able to determine where the church is located on the level of success. Are they moving toward the goal? Are they advancing the ball toward the goal line? Are we winning? What is the score of the game? Good leaders have got to develop scoreboards to be able to keep track of that. If they don't know they're winning. The people don't know they're winning, and soon nobody cares. Keeping score, it helps the leaders to stay informed about the condition of the church, where we are, what's important to us, what we need to do next, how are we going to get there. When people are able to define what a win looks like, they're much more likely to begin winning. And then when they start winning, they'll like it. Everybody loves to win. When they start winning, they're more likely to keep winning. Now, I live in the state of Kentucky, and Kentucky has a team that is known for its winning tradition, the Kentucky Wildcats. Big Blue, they call them here, Big Blue. I remember listening to a gentleman talking to another team that we have here called the Cardinals. And the Cardinals had won it all that year. They went all the way to the top. And this man is talking to his brother-in-law, giving him congratulations for his team. He said, "Congratulations, you deserve it. Your team has done very well this year." But he said, "Remember, when you look at that banner hanging on the wall, we've got 8 of those championship banners." Now, what's he saying? He's saying, we are the champions. We are the ones that got more of those on the wall than anybody else in this state, anyone else around. In other words, they expect to win every time. Now, I moved to the state of Kentucky from the state of Arkansas, and in Arkansas, we did not have a winning tradition. Oh, we had a team, and we were proud of our team, but we were just happy when they won. That's not the mind of a champion. When I come to Kentucky, suddenly I realize these players are fanatics because they think they should win every time. That's the winning tradition or the mind of a champion. Now, if that is true in the world of sports, how much more true it should be in the church. And yet, tragically, so many churches that they don't even expect to win. They don't even expect anybody to show up. Preachers preach sermons, don't expect anybody to respond. Now, we can call it what we want to call it, but in this lesson, I'm simply calling it a win. A win. And we must define that, make that clear, because everybody loves to win. So God help us to develop this mindset, the mindset of a champion, the mind of a champion, that we come expecting God to show up and good things to happen because we've done our homework, we've defined the win, we know where we're going, and we believe God will help us to reach that goal. And so what I'm defining to you is the mind of a champion. God help us to develop that.